There must be more to life than what I'm doing. If you open any door, I will walk through it. And I had no clue what I was saying. I took pictures and I thought it's just some memory shot. The woman had to walk 2 hours to get some dirty water that wasn't even clean. I'm like, can we build a well? Kids were throwing waters over their head. There was water and enough water. Using my voice and my photography to speak up on behalf of people that have no voices in our world because they are not empowered in many of these places. The point is that we do what we can and we start somewhere. He says in his word, you do not have because you do not ask. It's not that anything around you changes, it's more that you change. Our world is so loud. Do we make room for God? That's what changed my life. I live by the voice of the Lord. If many little people in many little places do many little things, we will change the face of the world. 30 years into it, I still love doing, and that's why I travel, and that's why I use my camera.
Welcome to Simply Complicated. I'm Sadie, and I'm excited today to introduce you to Susi Childers. She's a wife, she's a mother, she's a photographer. Her and her husband are part of the leadership team at Youth with a Mission in Kona, Hawaii. She's co-founded several global ministries and just a really awesome person who is so encouraging, so down to earth, and so real. And I hope you enjoy this conversation and are encouraged by it. Welcome to Simply Complicated. I'm Sadie, and today we get to speak with Susi Childers. So excited that you guys get to meet her. As we were just talking about, I met you 16 years ago, 2010, in Hawaii, of all places, and it's so fun to get to reconnect again. So could you give us a little overview of who you are?
So excited, Sadie. I'm so excited to be on this program with you. Yeah, I'm Susi Childers. Well, people say Susi because the N is too complicated. I'm from Germany. I'm married to Paul. He is from New Zealand. We have 3 kids, a son, 21, and then 2 girls, 18 and 14. We serve at Youth of the Mission, University of the Nations here in Kona, Hawaii. Been doing this for almost 30 years now. By trade, I'm a photographer, a professional photographer, and I use my gifts in missions for God. I try to, use the things that God has given me for his kingdom. And so, yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah, and how many countries have you been to?
Oh, dang. I think I stopped counting about 100, but I really have had a privilege to see the nation. So yeah, it's been over 100 nations so far. Yeah, it's been an incredible privilege to just see people from different nations. And I feel like you see a fingerprint of God in every place you go. So I have had the privilege to see a whole big picture of who God is.
That's awesome. Well, I love to dive more into some of those stories. I was going to share that I heard about you when I was in Rwanda in 2009. I
Wow.
was there on a missions trip with my church in Arizona, and there was a family from Water for Life that was connected with Hawaii. And I had just finished film school doing video production, and the father of all the kids there, he was just like, what do you want to do with your life? And I was like, I love Jesus and I love film. And he was like, you should check out PhotogenX. They have a program called Voice of the Voiceless with Paul and Susie. And I was like, okay. So I looked it up and I was like, yes, like she's a talented photographer. And I just was really inspired by what you guys were doing and like the heart behind it. So that's kind of what brought me to meet you guys in Hawaii in April of 2010.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I love it.
What is the heart of why you do what do you do? How did you take your photography skill and then end up where you are now, traveling the world to, you've been to the Amazon jungle, you've been to so many places I don't even know about. So, yeah. How did you
Well,
get here?
I was a photographer in Germany, 13 years I worked, and I loved what I was doing. There was so much creativity. But over the years, I just thought, man, anyone could do my job. Is there anything I could do where I could use my skills for something bigger than just making money and creating memory shots? And I also was frustrated thinking, I took so many wedding pictures and I thought, yeah, in 5 years, almost 50% are going to be divorced. Right? It was a reality. And I'm like, what are they going to do with those pictures? They're going to throw them away. And I was starting to I was unsettled in my heart. It wasn't a prayer or anything or an event, but I just slowly, I didn't realize it at the beginning, but over the years, I thought, man, there must be more to life than what I'm doing. And, I was close to getting 30 and there was no guy in my life. I was looking into a future. Maybe I never get married. And I thought, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I need more purpose. And so all these questions in me started to mount up. And I really, it was a dumb prayer I prayed. I said, Lord, show me anything on my, until my 30th birthday, which was like 6 months before. And I will do it. If you open any door, I will walk through it. And I had no clue what I was saying. I mean, it was
Yeah.
stupid, right? But God really did open some doors, and I connected again with another photographer who was now in use with a mission. I didn't even know what that was. And he invited me to come on an outreach to Nepal. And for the first time in my life, I saw people who had been, they called them unreached. And I'm like, what does it even mean to be unreached? Well, the gospel, they had no idea who Jesus was, what the Bible was. They had never heard of any of that stuff. And I could see in their lives that they suffered. I mean, there was no hope. I remember seeing this lady, she had 17 kids and she was begging me for something to prevent her from having babies. I met a woman, she had given birth to twins, but they didn't know one was bad, one was good, one was evil, one was good. And they had to kill both of them. And I'm like, what? I was confronted with all these things that I'd
Wow.
never heard about. And I thought, anyone who lives far away and they have been untouched, they live in harmony with nature and they're all doing really well. We shouldn't even go there. And I saw the reality of how they were suffering. And I couldn't think about, I have a responsibility now that I know.
Mhm.
So that led me onto a journey that finally brought me to youth with a mission. And I took my camera with me. I still didn't know what to do with it. I'm like, what am I going to do? Right. So on one of my first outreaches within YWAM, I went back to Nepal. We hiked really far into the Himalayas and I took pictures and I thought it's just some memory shots, right? For some people who had given me money to be able to do that. And when I started to show them in Germany, people were weeping. And I'm like, why are you weeping? This is just pictures. But the reality of who those people were somehow captured in those photos. They felt the pain, they saw the need, and they were just so drawn to those people that they had never met. And I realized, man, I have something in my hand that is much more than I realized.
Mhm.
And so I started to do exhibitions. I started to do slideshows, way back with slide projectors before we
Yeah.
did. And I realized I was touching something in people's heart that were not touched by words. People had to see it. I started to see the power of it. And then, I'm like, what am I going to do with people being touched and crying in front of my pictures? People wanted to help. And so I realized I could build bridges between people that have potential. So anyone that wants to do something, wants to change something, wants to make their lives count, wants to make their money count, wants to make their time count, and people that I need that can never meet with those people because they
Mhm.
don't have internet and they can't make their need known. And so I realized I could build bridges between the potential and the need. And I thought I'm just going to do that with photography. So that's how it all started. And it was like I came to a church and I told them about a need in a tribe in Ethiopia that where the woman had to walk 2 hours to get some dirty water that was not even clean. So to carry it back every day, 4 hours of walk. And I'm like, can we build a well? And people were so
Yeah.
willing to give. So I went back to Ethiopia. We got a specialist in there, and for $2,000, we built a well. That was the first thing I ever did. And I took
Wow.
pictures how the kids were throwing waters over their heads and how they were so excited for the first time in their life. There was water and enough water, right? It hadn't rained for 10 years, they said. And so I thought that was easy. I didn't even have to ask many people. It was so tangible for people. So that's how I started. And in the middle of this, God took me to a conference. That's an important part. We were hearing statistics about millions of people suffering. So they were talking about female genital mutilation. They were talking about child soldiers. They were talking about prostitutes, 10 million child prostitutes. And I'm like, what? Why would I not know about this? I couldn't imagine. I thought, where do you hide 10 million children? And so I leaned back and like this, literally like that. And I thought, this is not true. I would know about it. I'm educated.
Mhm.
I'm traveling the world. I have not seen this. And you can't hide so many people. But they were really smart in their conference. After telling us all the statistics, they brought people up on stage that shared about their lives. And I can't remember the issue that the first lady was talking about, but I knew immediately she shared about her own life. And she had suffered and she had survived and she had a terrible story. And I just
Yeah.
started weeping. And for literally 2.5 days, I was weeping about all those stories that I was hearing. And in the middle of this listening, this anger started to rise up in me. And I didn't even know that God was angry, right? About those things. But I was just going like this until it was like this. And I got up in the middle of the conference, 400 people, really embarrassing moment. And I said, enough is enough. We can sit here, 400 people for a whole week and talk about it, and not one life has changed. Someone needs to rise up and do something about it. And I remember how, like, literally all the 400, 800 eyes were looking at me, and I was just sitting down and hiding because I had no answers. But it was in that moment when my question came back to me, how about you, Susie, doing something about this? And I'm like, what could I do? I'm a photographer. I'm not a trauma expert. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a policewoman. I'm not a lawyer. I had all this list of people that could be needed, but not a photographer. And the question stood there. There was no answer. But we had one more at the very end of the conference was a worship time. And we sang a really simple song. I want to cry out for those who have no voices. And they sang it again and again, and it felt those words fell into my heart, and I knew it was for me. And I felt like the Lord was saying, I want you to be a voice for the voiceless. And that's literally what I then developed and what I am today. I'm a voice for the voiceless. That's what drives me forwards. That's what gets me up. That's what gets me excited. I'm using my voice and my photography to speak up on behalf of people that have no voices in our world.
Mm.
It's loud. We don't want to hear it. And so someone needs to take their stand and speak on behalf of them because they are not empowered in many of these places, especially women are not empowered to speak up because they are dominated by men, because they have never learned that they have a voice. And so someone else needs to come and do it for them. And so that's what I have been doing. And that's what 30 years into it, I still love doing. And that's why I travel. And that's why I use my camera. And yeah, it's been quite an amazing journey, very
Yeah,
purposeful.
that's amazing and very encouraging and challenging. And to hear how you're like, this can't be happening, because I feel that way. A lot of the stuff when you hear, you're like, is that real? Okay, is that really like, and then you're like, what can I do? And I love that you decided to use what you had in your hand and like go do something and like elevate their voice in a sense and like be the voice for them when no one else is listening. That's really powerful. And I love that you were like, I don't know what to do. I'm doing photography over here, and I love that you're like, okay, I'll go anywhere. And how your journey just led you to such impactful, powerful work when you like were open to where God was leading. And
Yeah, and I think we all have those moments in our life, because we all confronted with it could be injustice, it could be anything else. But most of the times, we know something should happen. We hope someone else is going to do it, right?
Mhm.
But that question is really important that we ask ourselves: Is there something I can do? And
Mhm.
it could just start with you meet with a friend and say, "Hey, I really don't like that area in our town, can we start praying, asking God together what we could do, and it's really easy to be overwhelmed, because any issue is too big for us, right? I mean, they talked about 10 million child prostitutes. I'm like, what in the world can I do? I'm just one person. But I remember a moment I was in India. I went purposefully into a red light area, 100,000 women alone from India were there selling their bodies, most of them quite young. And
Mhm.
I walked in there the first time I ever did that with a social worker that took me. And I wanted to throw up. I mean, it was just crazy. There were condoms on the floor everywhere and rats, eating themselves through the garbage. And in the midst of all of this, I mean, the smell was terrible. And then in the midst of this were this most beautiful young girls in saris, dressed, waiting for some customers. And
Mhm.
I wanted to throw up. And I remember saying to myself, I want to get out of here. I want to shower and I want to forget about this. That
Yeah.
was kind of my initial reaction. Of course, you can't shower that off. And so I said to
Yeah.
the lady, can we just go out of here? Can we go back? I think I saw what I needed to see. And we were walking out, and I felt like a really small voice. It's a thought in my head. It's not that I hear a voice, but it was a thought in my head. Go and meet one of those girls. Go and hear one of the stories. And that's what I did. I asked the lady, do you know someone I could meet? And we had to go back 2 days later, and we went back and I met the lady, the Messiah, and I said, why are you, how did you end up here? Why are you doing what you're doing? Just out of interest. And she told me that she was born in southern India into a Hindu family, and they believe in a goddess, and she requires that the firstborn girl of every family is given into prostitution to pay for the
Yeah.
sins of all the family members. And
Mm,
so she said, and that's her word. She said, the day I was born, I had a destiny. They never
mhm,
taught me. That's really literally her words. They never taught me how to read or write because they knew I would become a prostitute. I was born to be a prostitute and I will die as a prostitute. There's no hope. I mean, I wept
mm,
when she said that because I knew that God had very different plans for her life, but she was never introduced to God, and she just did what was right in the eyes of her family's religion.
mm,
And I remember, God saying to me, you don't have to save 100,000 girls there or 10 million child prostitutes, but maybe you can touch one life. And I think that is the key when we are confronted with issues of injustice or things that are not right. We don't have to save the world. Jesus didn't save the whole world when he was there. He was in a tiny little country. If he would have been in Rome, he could have changed way more, a whole, civilization. He went to a tiny, insignificant country that was occupied. And there he didn't even go to the whole place. He walked only to certain places and he didn't heal or save or touch the whole nation of Israel. There was only a small amount, but he gave us an example. He's not challenging us to look after 360 million female genital mutilated women, but we can maybe make a difference for one or for five or for 10. And maybe God gives us a chance for 100 or 1,000. That's really not the issue or the point. The point is that we do what we can and we start
mhm,
somewhere. And we can't just be, silent about the things that happen and I don't know what to do. Yeah, we all don't know what to do, but we start somewhere. And a prayer is a
mm,
good start. And pull someone else in because alone it's discouraging. Just start something little with a few friends, a few mothers, whatever your realm of friends right now is. That you think you have some friends in the university. If you have kids, you have maybe some mothers on the playground, and just ask, what could we do, and go on a journey. And I promise you, if you don't give up, God will show you, open some doors for you. You know,
mhm,
for you will get to know people that will either be some that need help or cry out in silence, or people that are influential, but your little efforts will not go unseen. And so that's what I think. Let's not be overwhelmed by the scope of things. Let's look for the ones that we can actually do something about. That's the key.
yeah, that's good. Because yeah, sometimes the overwhelm of how do I say, and like it's not your responsibility to save everyone, but how can you just start showing up? Because you never know what God will do through that. So
Yeah.
that's
And
great.
if many, in the Berlin, I come from Germany, on that Berlin Wall that divided our country, someone had spray painted something really simple on it. And it said, if many little people in many little places do many little things, we will change the face of the world. And I thought that is so true. It's that's how we're going to change things. It's not by laws and big people doing things. It's by many little people like you and me, normal people.
Mhm.
I'm a normal person doing little things. Let's start little. Everything starts with a little step, and we do that in many little people do that in many places, and we do little things. We would really truly change something if I think if the body of Christ would wake up, over 2 billion
Yeah.
people all around the world, we would be able to make a difference. So
Yeah.
let's do.
Yeah. That's so good. So I know you have so many stories like that. Is there any stories that you wanted to share of like the most transformative story or the craziest story you've been on?
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
I don't
30, maybe I should two.
Okay.
One is the last one. That's always good. And one is one that goes way back, but it was the most impactful one. So I was so in Youth with a Mission, we have all kinds of meetings, but there was a couple from Brazil visiting many years ago. I was leading a school and, we were asked to go to that meeting, and it ended up a meeting on Indian groups in the Amazon. And they introduced me and many of us to an issue I'd never heard about, and they called it infanticide. And it was something that was happening in many tribes in the Amazon jungle, where when a mother is single and gives birth, no matter how she has become pregnant, they never ask, but that child has no right to live. Or if she has twins or triplets, It's many cultures believe that one is evil, one is good. They don't know which one, so they kill both of them or all three. Or if a child is born disabled, they feel like there's an evil spirit on it. And so how they want or how the tradition goes, they need to kill that evil spirit in their child. And the way they have to do it is they bury them alive. So that the evil spirit, when the baby breathes the last breath or the child, then the spirit leaves the person. But when it's under the soil, the belief is that the spirit dies with the baby or with the child. And so it's been done for, we don't know, hundreds of years. It's a tradition. It's a taboo topic. We didn't know that, but people don't talk about it. It's just being done. You know, we have stuff in our cultures too. They are not as bad, but we do things because our mothers did it, our grandmothers did it, and we don't really challenge them. Why are we still doing this like this? So I heard about it and I was immediately touched. And as I always do, I said, Lord, is there something I can do? And I felt like I should get involved in all of this. But, I was just in this getting pregnant. I was just, I was pregnant with my second baby. I had a miscarriage. I had Levi. Then I had a miscarriage. I was pregnant again. I was running a school and I thought, perfect. We're going to send an outreach team and that's it. But the Lord that was my plan. And the Lord said, every minute you wait, more kids are going to be killed. So I felt there was an urgent need to do something. And so we prayed with lots of people and, got some wisdom into it. Long story short, I went there to capture what was happening. And it was way harder than I thought to do that. And I couldn't really do it. The Indians were not very cooperative. It was very difficult to get there, all that to say. But in the midst of this, I met a survivor, a girl that was, I think it was 9 years old when I met her. She had survived. Her brother had pulled her out of that. I mean, so it went like this. She was buried alive, uh, and they, knocked her over so that she would be unconscious. But when they put soil onto her grave, she woke up and she screamed, and her brother couldn't handle it. So he pulled her out of the grave and brought her to the grandfather. Grandfather tried to kill her with a bow and an arrow, but missed her heart and realized I didn't kill her. And he said, I don't know what to do with her. And so there was the moment because her parents had killed themselves, had committed suicide because they didn't want to kill her. And so she was an orphan and she was just put into the jungle all by herself. And she survived by drinking the rainwater and eating anything she could that was laying around. When she was 5 years old, she was about to die. I mean, she was tiny and had a big belly because filled with worms. And she was brought to a couple of missionaries, YWAM missionaries, and they took her in as their own daughter. And when I met her, she was 9 years old. I think she was 9 or 10, and she had survived. And she was the living proof that, we needed to do something. So we started to talk about it. We made it quite public. We went international with this. We wrote to the people that were the human rights representatives of the government of Brazil. And we actually really pushed, long story short, we pushed laws so that these kids would be protected. We started a refuge village so that the people that didn't want to kill their kids could come out of the jungle and we would take care of them, medical care, all what they needed. And so that story became really big. There was a filmmaker that got involved and he made a docudrama about the life of Hakani, that girl that had survived. 27 million people in Brazil saw it. So there was a big stirring up, and that was maybe the biggest thing we ever did, changing laws, moving kind of a whole country. 700,000 Indians then got involved in all of this. We showed them the movie, the docudrama, and we challenged them to stop that tradition. And they said, yes, if you take care of they said, we're okay with the triplets and the twins, and we're okay with the single mothers, but we don't know what to do with the disabled kids. So we said, come bring them to us. We take care of them. So that was a beautiful thing that God did there, and it was like we all just gave what we had. There were lawyers involved, the filmmaker was involved, I was a photographer, there were some linguists involved, translation stuff, it was a beautiful combination of people from different countries coming together, throwing their gifts into one basket and say, Lord, can you change something through our little efforts that we did? And that was really, really special. And really, I only had a tiny little part, but I was the one who brought the story out. so
Yeah.
that people rise up and do something. Sometimes, that's the thing that I get to do because you can't do anything if you don't know about it.
Yeah.
So that was a cool thing.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, I was in Mali and I went to there was a choice that I made while I was there. There's a red zone where terrorists are quite active, but I chose to go there. And on the way, we visited some people, and they were incredible couple that has started gardens for over 30,000 people all
Mm.
over the place, where they live, and they are helping people to get nutritious food. They have started schools, they have started hospitals, they started churches. They're just totally holistic. But they had, and I saw that car. It was an old, beaten up Land Rover when I walked into their house, and that's what they said at the end. That their Land Rover 350,000 kilometers. It's over, it's done, and they can't go back to those villages. And if I and they would need it. They are praying for a new car. And I immediately thought I'd like to help them. But I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what I knew it would be into the thousands, tens of thousands of dollars that I needed for that. But I had that. I didn't promise anything. I didn't say anything. I just had that. And I remember flying back and I said, Lord, I'd love to help them in that. So I just made myself available. And about 10 days later, we had meetings in Hawaii. Some people came, some advisors, and I had a chance to just share that story, not even the need of it. And there was a guy that had a dream 10 years ago about a car that would bring healing because they called it a healing car in Mali.
Yeah.
So I used that word healing car. And when he heard that, he was just, I mean, he was in the front row and he got really excited. I'm like, what's wrong with this guy, right? When I saw him while I was speaking, and he came running up to me and said, tell me more about that healing car. And so the next day we had breakfast, and I gladly had called Marley the night before and I said, hey, what would you need? How much is a car? And, can you, and then they had done all their research and everything because they really needed one. They were praying for months now for a car. And so the next morning I could say we need about $25,000 because they didn't want to have a new car, was too much attention. And he said, hey, I have a foundation. I want to pay for this. So that
Yeah.
was the most beautiful phone call I ever did in my life. I called them. I said, hey,
Yeah.
Diane, I'm a bringer of good news. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, what do you need? She didn't even want to say it, right? And I
Yeah.
told them that $25,000 were on their way to
Wow.
them for a new car so that they could keep on doing their work. And it was awesome. And I just got some pictures from them. They're giving goats now to families. And the job
Wow.
of the family is to multiply the goat so they would have more proteins and milk. And it's been such a fun project to be involved with. And it was the photography. I took pictures of the car and of the speed meter. I took some pictures of them and of what they were
Mm-hmm.
doing. They had some pictures they're sending me. And that's what I presented. And as I was speaking, I showed the pictures. And that's when people's hearts are always, touched
Yeah.
because I'm talking about real people that are alive right now. And people love
Mm-hmm.
that and can connect. You can't connect people with numbers.
Yeah.
If I say 10 million child prostitutes, it's like dang over our head. I've never seen 10 million people in one place. I don't know how much that is. But if I
Yeah.
can bring it down to one person, I have a name, I have a face, and I can say, look, this is a person I'm talking about. That's when people can connect heart to heart. And so that's why the photography is so powerful, or videography, or all that stuff, right? It's so powerful because we can
Yeah.
connect people with people. And that's what the photography did. So yeah, that was just my last project. I really love that.
Yeah.
And it's all in between, I mean, changing laws and digging wells I shared about, getting kids off the street and buying a car for people in Mali. It's been so broad, 30 years of experiences. It's been really cool to see God's creativity in all of this. It's not
Yeah.
one shape that fits for everyone. And so, yeah, ask God. He says in his word, you do not have because you do not ask. So sometimes we feel so overwhelmed about something, we don't know where to start. We don't know, I'm not the right person. And I'm not the right person, right? But God in us, can do anything. That's what he says. Like all things are possible for those who believe. And so let's ask him for solutions. Let's ask him for the next steps. Let's ask him for the resources. Let's ask him for the people to come alongside so that our little lives can make a little bit of a difference where we are. We don't need to fly over to another country. We all live in a community where there are issues that are not right, where the world has, is not the way that God created it to be. And that's where we should all wake up. And Honestly, if you listen to this and you're not a Christian, you still have responsibility. We can't just look away and say, we don't see the homeless people in our community, or we don't, that's not my problem, that kids don't go to school or whatever it is, or that
Mhm.
there's trafficking in my town. That's not my problem. I'm not, uh, you know, not going to prostitutes. I'm not watching pornography. Well, it is our problem and it is our
Mhm.
responsibility because there are people that are silenced and they cannot do anything for themselves. So our job is to come alongside those people. And it might sound impossible, but you just need to take one little step into one direction, and then suddenly a door opens. You're like, "Dang, okay," and you walk to the next one. And sometimes there are two or three doors, and choose one. There's not one wrong, one right. But Jesus says the last thing he says before he leaves. He says, "Go," and go means a change of location. You can't
Mhm.
stay and go. It's a choice, and you don't have to make it, but I want to encourage you to make it. And he doesn't say he says go into all the world. It doesn't say you only can do this in certain countries or in certain places. He says go. So go means a change of location. It could mean across the road to your neighbor, right? It could mean into another town or city. It could mean to the ends of the world. Anything in between. Go to your mother's group, go to your
Yeah.
sports club, go to your fitness studio, go to the school of your children, go to your university, go to your neighborhood. I mean, we all have a natural realm of influence. We have a place where we meet people on a natural base. It's just every day we walk by the same people. We buy the coffee at the same place. We go shopping in the same cashiers there. These are the people that God puts in our way, and we can make a
Mhm.
difference. It's a choice. It's not going to
Mhm.
happen by miracles. We make a choice. Okay, I want to be a person that makes a difference. And, there's a prayer that really simple that changed my life. Here I am with all that I know that I can, my time, my money, all my gifts, but also with my sin, with all the stuff, my fear of man, name it, right?
Yeah.
Lots of stuff. Come also
Mhm.
with my inability of so many things. I come as I am, and I cry out to the Lord, and I say, "Hey, use me. Don't go to my neighbor. Use me. Use me for anything. I am available."
Mhm.
And I promise you, if you do that and make a sticker on your mirror, and you start doing this every day and pray that out, you will either doors will open that were closed, or you will suddenly see things that you just haven't seen. You
Mhm.
will actually see people for who they are, or you will suddenly make alert of a situation that you have walked by every day and you just never noticed. Suddenly you will
Mhm.
see. So it's not so much, that anything around you changes. It's more that you change. You pray and that,
Mhm.
that prayer changes you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. And I love how the simple asking to like have your eyes opened a little bit more led to for you like a conversation with somebody where they needed a car and you're like, "Oh, I'll just share it." And then you share it and now it's like this guy who had a dream and these people who are praying, you get to be that bridge that you mentioned and how you're just doing that little step and you never know how big that could be or how meaningful that could be. And I think that's your encouragement is much needed and well received that it doesn't have to be traveling across the world. It can just be across the street. It can be at the grocery store. And that's really good to start being more aware that like we actually have, if we're open to it, there is so much everybody feels alone. Everybody's hurting in some capacity. Like how can we show up and see each other a little bit better?
Also, you don't need to have a plan.
Mhm.
You don't have to have budget. I mean, sometimes those things stop us from taking the first step.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you're a believer, the first thing you do, you start praying.
Mhm.
And you say, "Hey, Lord, I see this injustice. I see this wrong. I see that this is not how you meant it to be. Is there something I can do?" And
Mhm.
and use of the mission. The first week you normally learn about hearing God's voice.
Mhm.
Jesus says, "My sheep hear my voice." So this is just a fact. We can hear God because He speaks. The most used verb in connection with God in the Bible is that He speaks. He talks. He says.
Mhm.
And He doesn't change. So He does it still today. The question is, do we listen? Our world
Mhm.
is so loud. Do we make room for God to speak to us? Or are we just coming with him with a list of our prayer requests? That's what I need or what I'd like to see. Or are you saying, Lord, is there anything you want to tell me? And it's not
Mhm.
so easy because we're not used to that. And it's not most probably not going to be an audible voice like of an old man saying, my name, hey Susie. It is most of the time, 90 something 8%, it's a thought that I have. I suddenly remember someone. I'm like, why am I thinking about this person?
Mhm.
Or I see something, oh, I wanted to go there. And I'm like, why am I thinking about this? And that's where you need to be alert. I'm like, oh, maybe, maybe I should just go back where I was there, or I should just give a call to the person, and just do what you can do, the little things. Really start with something little. Call that person, ask, how are you doing? I did that
Mhm.
yesterday. And I mean, I think it's going to be a defining call for that person because she said, I have been I mean, she said it isn't depression, but I just have been kind of powerless and I've been not proactive and I need to be proactive because in 2 weeks I have to move and I don't even have a place where I should go. And I said,
Mhm.
hey, see this call as a wake up call. This is a wake up call for you
Yeah.
that you can't go on like this. You can't wake up and now this is from now on, you're going to be, proactive in all of this. And it's just this. And I just
Yeah.
had an hour time between two meetings. I'm like, well, I'm just going to give her a call and see if I get her. And we ended up
Yeah.
talking over an hour. So, you know what I mean? Follow those impulses during the day. That's often God. But if we're too
Mhm.
busy because we have sketched on our day every day, and there's no moment where we can actually just ask, is there something you want to tell me? Or is there someone you want me to see? And
Mhm.
let's just be more proactive in that. We need to silence a little bit the noise around us and
Mhm.
not always have the earphones on and not always have music in the background. Just sit in your car and just be silent as you drive and see what happens
Mhm.
and invite the Holy Spirit to speak to you. You know,
Mhm.
it's very simple. What I do, I say, I silence my own voice. I'm not going to listen to my own ideas because I'm so limited. I'm not going to listen to the voice of the enemy who comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And he's a liar from the beginning. So I silence his voice
Mhm.
and I say, Holy Spirit, is there something you want to tell me? And then my mind normally starts drifting here. And sometimes, I drift and drift and it's nothing. But sometimes, yeah, I remember someone or a situation or something. I'm like, oh, I wanted to do this and I never did.
Mhm.
And that's the most important thing is when those thoughts come that you're obedient, that you do what you feel like it could be God. You never know until you step into it and do it. And the more you are obedient in those little things, the more that voice will become familiar to you
Mhm.
because God will entrust you things as you're obedient. And it really, literally, I still have those moments. I walk over our campus. It's a big campus and there's a garbage there. And I walk the garbage and I feel like I should pick it up. And I'm like, no, it's not my garbage, right? I walk by it. And that the thought doesn't go away. And I'm like, no, there's going to be a work duty student who's going to do this. I'm not going to take their jobs. And I walk and I'm 100 yards away from that some paper, right? That lay on the
Yeah.
thing. And I have a choice. And I turn around and I pick it up, hopefully. And was it God? Was it not? I don't know. But what have I lost if I do it? And that's how
Mhm.
that needs to be our attitude. If you have the slightest feeling it could be God, just step out and do it. And as you do, that voice becomes more and more and more familiar. And you get used to the sound of that voice of that thoughts. And that's
Mhm.
that's what changed my life. I live by the voice of the Lord. That's what I
Mhm.
want. The one thing that can interrupt me at anything I do. And I want to be obedient because if God wants to stop my way for whatever reason, it could be good for me, but it could be life changing for someone else. So
Yeah.
I just want to really encourage you to invite God to speak to you and then follow for whatever He says, just do it. And it's
Yeah.
most probably if you are not used to it, it's going to be tiny little things. Turn around and smile to the person that stands behind you at the counter, and like that's going to be so awkward. And you do it. And that you might be the first person smiling at that person behind you. You
Yeah.
know that
I've had moments where like I was having a terrible day. I felt so alone, and somebody in the grocery store said hi to me. Like, or I think they're like, "Oh, I like your hair," or something. That was like one of the workers, and I was like, "Oh, thanks." And then I like almost started crying because I was like, I have not had human contact. I haven't had anyone acknowledge me, and just that simple like acknowledgement of somebody like looking me in the eyes was like, I really needed that. So, just to add to that, like, you never know what a smile that feels awkward to could be for somebody else. So,
And look how simple. That doesn't cost us
yeah.
anything. It's just a
Yeah.
choice. And,
Mhm.
we all love hanging around people that are positive, that
Mhm.
are encouraging, that, I'm so dumb. I have to be really honest here. I see a whole lot of good things about people, but I hardly ever tell them. I see
Mm.
when someone has a new haircut. When someone wears something that fits them really well. I see those things. I'm a visual person. But so many times I'm not telling them.
Mhm.
And the Lord is really challenging me. Just be positive and give people something to be proud of or to be happy about. And
Mhm.
if we really do that with the Lord, there's always something we can say to someone, and we don't know if they
Mhm.
need encouragement in that moment. And we all love when someone gives us a compliment. Why are we
Yeah.
holding back? We shouldn't
Yeah.
hold back. You know?
That's that's a good point. Yeah, and I love everything you've shared about it just seems very real and, like, just you're mentioning you're like, "Maybe I don't have the biggest ideas, but, like, I'm gonna pray." And I just feel like you're not coming into it with, like, "I've done all these things, and I'm gonna go change the world." But it's, like, with, I don't know, humility and just, like, very real where it takes the pressure off, and so I think I've always been encouraged by hearing you share things like that, but just that, like, we don't have to get perfect to show up and, like, do something. It's just, like, just practice showing up, and that's just allow yourself to be, and, you mentioned, like, the fear of man or fear and that comes up in the things that you might be doing, that, like, that's a part of the journey, like, we're human, we have things that we're afraid of, and that hasn't stopped you. You keep being like, "Well, I'm showing up with all of this, like, my hope and my fear."
Yeah, and it
It's
doesn't go
encouraging
away,
me.
Sometimes people look at me and are like, "Oh, you're kind of a professional," like a professional missionary, a professional whatever. I'm not. It's still every single time a decision, to sit at an airplane and choose to talk to my neighbor. I would much rather have my headphones on and, read my book or whatever, watch a
Yeah.
movie. But it's a decision that we are actually present, when we go somewhere and we are aware of who is around us.
Mhm.
And as you said, so many people are lonely, so many people are hurting, and we literally we have the best message in the world. Why are we holding it back, and why are we not sharing it with people? And it doesn't need to be fake or under pressure. Don't feel pressured at all. But if I think if we open up a little bit, we know immediately if someone is open or not. And if they're not,
Mhm.
that's it. That's fine. We don't have
Yeah.
to. It's not us. But if someone needs that encouraging word or whatever it is, right? Release from a load of on their shoulders, because you can tell them something about why Jesus died, stuff like this. I mean, let's take those opportunities.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. So then from all of the things that you've experienced and from the really big things to the little things, what would you want to make sure that, like, your loved ones knew if you could sum it up?
Very simple. Hearing and obeying God's voice. That's it.
Mm,
That is the most powerful tool, because once you're connected to God, there is no limit to creativity. That's
mm,
that's why I'm never, man, look what I can do or whatever, because every single time it looks different. And I don't have the plan. I never studied any of this. I have no clue how you change a community or something, but I've done it. But it's by the
mm,
word of the Lord. So that's the bottom line. The most important thing is we connect with God. We ask Him, what are the steps I should take? What's your strategy? Where's the money going to come from? I don't have any of that stuff. I live by donations. How am I going to raise $25,000, right? But God, 10 years, look at the faithfulness of God. 10 years before, He gave someone a dream twice. So two nights in a row that he had the dream of a healing power. I can't make this happen. But
yeah.
it takes any pressure off me that I can perform any of this stuff. So
Mm,
that's why if it comes to, my children, I mean, they know. But if I teach, I normally hear or there mention that, because I think once we're connected to this infinitive incredible God that has all knowledge. Everything belongs to him. There are no limitations in him. He has all the strategy that we ever need, and then why would he tell me something, right? I'm a tiny little speck in the universe. And he looks at me and says, no, I am your God. I made you in my image, and you are in infinite value. I want to share my heart with you. I want to share my dreams with you. And then we can
Mhm.
walk that out. I mean, it is just, it blows my mind every single time when I think about it. So, the most important thing is like connecting with that God, asking Him, involving Him in the decision making, and then just doing what He says. And it's actually not hard. And what maybe the most important thing in that is that the next step is never too difficult. It gets
Mhm.
really difficult when we look ten steps down the road, or when we want a 5-year plan, you know, and we don't have all the details. And it's, people want that sometimes, you know. And I have to
Mhm.
say, I don't know. I can't, I need to walk by
Yeah.
faith, because I'm trusting that God would lead and guide me, and He will. He has all the
Mhm.
time. So don't look for the next 3 steps. Look for the next step, because the next step is not too difficult. And God thinks way bigger than about you than you think about yourself. You know, if He would show you maybe the next 5 steps, you would totally freak out. I cannot do this. I'm
Yeah.
not that kind of a person, you know. But if you take all the 4 steps before, you can actually do the fifth. But
Mm.
He doesn't show us sometimes the next 5 steps, because He knows we wouldn't be able to comprehend. So let's just take the next step, and then the next, and it builds on each other, and that's never too difficult. And He wants us to succeed, right? I mean, He doesn't give us tasks that we're going to fail. He doesn't want us to fail. He
Mhm.
wants us to succeed. So He's going to be behind us, around us, in us, over us, to encourage us, you know. And He's the
Yeah.
greatest cheerleader. And we just need
Mhm.
to take that little step and not want to have the next 5 steps. Let's just stay small.
That's good. I like that, especially like if we see the fifth step, we may not think it's possible, get overwhelmed. How are we going to do that on our own? And it's like, well, maybe you'll learn some stuff if you follow my first step.
Sure.
And I love the cheerleader, like he's with us, wanting us to succeed, wanting, giving us more information, helping us learn. And I think that's a good reminder because sometimes we can, or I have in the past, I need to do it right. I don't want to like disappoint you. Instead, no, he's a loving father who's like, let's go. Let's do this together. Trust me
Yeah.
on this step. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
really
true.
good.
Yeah. I mean, just do the little things. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah. Jesus was such a good example. You know, He was always reaching out for the ones, you know, and Mother Teresa says, I love that, you know, if you can't feed 100 people, should start with the first one.
Mm,
Do one, start one,
yeah.
she said. So it's, you know, that's what paralyzes us, looking at the 100 hungry kids or whatever it
Mhm.
is, the issue, and then we're paralyzed. But if we look at the one kid before us, we can actually do it.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you for sharing that. I love that. It's very encouraging. You have a photo book. Do you want to share like what you're doing now? If people can connect to what you're doing, look at
I
some of your
have it. Shall I
photos.
get it? It's actually in
Yeah.
the other. Should I get it?
Oh, yeah. If you
Okay.
can, yeah, please do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that'd be great. Oh,
So
no
I might
problem.
have the German here. It's called Go, which is English, and it is the title is Change Your World.
Mm,
So this whole book is, and it's almost done in English. We're just the last stage. We need to find a printer and that stuff, but it is literally my story. So you have, if I can show you like this, lots of pictures, pictures from all around the world with the stories of people that I met. And it's filled with callings, oops, with callings in it of
mhm,
people that suffer. And they are people like you and me. And the challenge, so it's very practical book. It first gives you an idea about the world, about, you know, how does the world look like, because we don't really have a realistic view. If we have never traveled to certain places, we think, oh,
mhm,
everyone has life like we have. And no, you know, many people, it looks very, very different. So it's kind of educational, but it's in story form. So it's
mhm,
easy to read, lots of pictures. The stories have pictures with it. And then it's a whole section is, so how do you start? What can you do in your realm? And how can you change your world? So very practical steps of how do you hear God's voice? How can you create with God new things? You know, so find solution for problems of our world today. So I've done a whole bunch of books and calendars and things. I'm in a prayer initiative right now. I just went to Brazil. It's a 10-day prayer, but we want to do a 40-day prayer for next year, Lent season. And
mm,
it's going to be a journey where we look at injustice 40 issues of injustice, but also at our hearts. So, how do we contribute to that injustice, and, what could be some steps? So it's very practical as well. So we put our own heart, but we also pray for the big issues of our day, so that, we are not paralyzed by what's happening, but that
Mhm.
we actually change things where we can.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so good. I am excited for the English version since I
Yeah.
don't speak German.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's so funny. It should have been done by now, but we had all kinds of really challenges. It's not so easy. So we're thinking of bringing it somewhere else. We want to bring it in America, and then it's so difficult. And with, we'll bring it somewhere else. And all the tariff stuff, we don't even know what that means. So
yeah,
we're just in a little bit of a loop right now, hoping to be able to do it in America. We would love
okay.
to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
very excited to see it. Your photography is amazing. Even seeing the glimpses on there.
I
Yeah.
could give you the link to the 10-day prior journey so 10 days we have done as a teaser, so that we're going to do 40 days, so that people can already pray for the 10 days,
Okay.
for
Yeah.
any injustice that are in their neighborhoods.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Also, I'm sorry, my dog, if you can hear,
Yeah.
she's whining. She was perfectly fine until right now. She's like, it's dinner time. So Kona,
Wow.
her name's Kona, by the way, from Kona, Hawaii.
Oh,
Kona, get out of
so
here.
cute.
Go. She's
So cute.
hey, get
While you're
down.
having dinner, I'm having lunch
Yeah, yeah, right. I saw on social media that you ran a half marathon
on
or
Sunday.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you a runner? Is that a new thing? How was that for you?
Okay, I was a runner. Then I stopped it. I had kids, and I used the kids as an excuse, really. But all my kids are runners now, right? They're all very, very fit. And so for Christmas, so Paul he got a triathlon. I was giving a half marathon in Honolulu as a gift from our children. And so I looked at it, I'm like, dang, is that a blessing or a curse, right? But I have been so excited because, in the morning I had to get up at 6 o'clock before sunrise and run. And it's been such a cool journey. And I never thought I would be able to do it. It's those things, where you just don't make an effort and then you are forced into it. I was literally forced into it. And I'm so glad they did. And there's something about being physically, you don't need to be skinny or something, but be physically active. It's going to make your spirit also active. And I discovered at the end of last year from the Desert Fathers of Egypt, an old booklet. It's not old. It's old, but they, they printed today, and it's it's a way how the old through all those 2,000 years almost now people have prayed. It's very liturgical, and it's doing the psalms, and then there's a part which I really like. You just speak a word over any situation. Kyrie eleison. That's what it is. You speak Kyrie eleison over a situation, over a person, over the war in Iran, and you don't have to come up with ideas what you need to pray for, because I don't know what they need. I don't really understand all of this, and it's all built in. And so I was running every morning when I run. I take a little paper, and I follow
Mm,
that, and I'm doing this hour of praying with God that I've never had like this. It's a new thing, and I love it. So when I ran on Sunday at my paper, I did it twice, and that's what kept me running for 2 hours and 13 minutes, right? So find a way how you can,
yeah.
connect your. That's what I did. I connect my fitness with God, and it became this beautiful time that is not lost, and that's how I make it,
Mhm.
because I don't focus on running, I focus on God. It's been beautiful moments of meeting with God and praying for much more people than I've ever prayed in my life, because I have time.
Yeah.
And so that's why I really enjoyed it. So was I a runner? Yeah. Have I run? No. Am I enjoying it? Yes. So we're talking about what is our next thing now. We
Yeah.
definitely want to keep on doing this because it's been so healthy for us.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that because I have had the thought. I was like, I want to start running again, but my feeling of it is like, that doesn't feel good. So I love the prayer time because I'm like, oh, I definitely do that. That would help me have my mind in a good place.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm
you
excited to
think
try
about
that.
that Egyptian stuff is like the Lord's Prayer. You
Yeah.
pray that every day, and it's several times to pray that. It's like, what am I even praying? You start thinking about things that are very familiar. There's a creed, where you confess who God is, the Son and the Holy Spirit. And I'm like, wow, dang, I never think about those things. So it just, all of psalm suddenly becomes really deep because you do it every day. and it
Mhm.
becomes kind of a natural thing then it starts praying in you. It's been really, really sometimes I pray 41, so that Kyrie eleison is 41 times because of Jesus has been, hit 39 times and then the nails and stuff, the thorn and the nail, so it's 41
Mhm.
things. And so you do for 40. So sometimes I pray for nations that I just come up with. And then I pray for people. I pray for my whole all my relatives. I haven't done that for years. Everyone by
Yeah.
name that I can remember. And then I pray for situations around my neighbors. I mean, every day it's something else, and I'm not planning that, but just becomes an idea, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do this today, and it's been really, really fun to do that. And I was also we did cross training. So I met someone swimming in the pool, and he says, "Well, I'm training for something, and by the time I've trained for 4 months, I've listened to the whole Bible while I'm swimming." And I'm like, "What?" So he
Oh,
had
wow.
little headphones on; they were waterproof, and that's what he was doing. I thought that was so cool, right? So
Yeah.
he's swimming laps, has a watch, so he doesn't need to count. And while he's doing it, he's listening to the Bible, and by the end of 4 months, he has listened to the whole Bible. And I'm like, it's such a cool idea.
Yeah,
So
I
just
love
be
that.
creative. Ask God for creative ideas
Yeah.
and see what to do.
Yeah.
It's
That's
not a lost
awesome.
time. That's why I think I'm gonna be going on with all this. I'm gonna do more than running because I think it's too hard on my knees. But
Mhm.
maybe sit on a bike or go swimming as well. We're living in Kona in Hawaii, so you can swim all year long, every day.
Yeah.
Cost me anything. So yeah, I want to encourage you, anyone, who listens to this. Even if you go for walks, I started to walk with my neighbor years ago, and that's how she became a Christian, because we were
Mm.
starting to talk. And I wasn't witnessing, I was just telling her what I was doing, and then I would go on a trip, I come back, and she was so eager to hear. And she got so interested in what I was doing and why I was doing what I was doing, and just talks every other day, you
Yeah.
know. It's simple. If you don't need to run, but get active because
Mhm.
the phones are just addictive for all of us, and it's much easier to sit on the sofa and look at a phone. But it's so much more a chance for God to interact with us when we go into nature, when we're outside, when we
Mhm.
make an effort, and we're gonna feel healthier, we sleep better, maybe we lose some weight, maybe we don't, but we're definitely gonna be healthier. And I want to encourage you, the Holy Spirit is living in us. Let's keep that temple clean as
Yeah.
much as, and we're gonna get old, healthy and with quality, not just with years. But we're gonna have
Mhm.
to take our part as well in it. It's never too late to start, never too early. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Helps keep the distractions from the phone. We can get clearer, hear God more, feel better physically, and that's really good. Well, thank you so much for your encouragement with
If
that.
you have dark thoughts, if you have hard thoughts on yourself, you don't get out by looking at more people, that are better than you. You get out of this by, meditate on something. That's what I said, print out a short psalm, or maybe one from your
Mhm.
child song or something. Go out and do this, and don't just stop doing it once, just
Yeah.
do it again and again, and there are new things you will discover, and it's really
Mhm.
beautiful. You take your mind away from yourself, and you focus it on God or on something else, and it's going to be healthy. Just don't allow that dark thoughts to linger in you. We all have them,
Yeah.
and we can linger on them, or we can say, "No, I'm not gonna go there. I'm just gonna." But you have to be proactive, and
Mhm.
you know, just yeah, meditate, take time. Don't have the noise around you. Sit somewhere and just watch. Sit in the presence of God and do nothing. Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
a really really hard thing. Don't come with a prayer list. Don't come with
Yeah.
worship or whatever. Or don't come with songs. Just sit there and see what it does to you.
Mhm.
And see what happens. I promise you, the first few times you just your mind is kind of get nuts with things that you realize you haven't done and you should be doing. And so I have a little notebook, I can write something down so that I
Mhm.
don't forget. But then there's gonna be a moment where you enter into a thing, oh, I just can't be. I don't have to produce. I don't have to be anyone in God's presence. I can just be, you know?
That's really good. Thanks for that reminder too.
I just thought about the stages in life where things change,
Yeah.
when you're single, it's different from when you're married, from when you have kids, and you have to fight more for your time with God when it gets
Mhm.
busier, with kids, or You can't just turn on the light in the middle of the night because you have a husband suddenly, right? So you could just have to find ways how you can meet with God, and adjust that and fight for it. And don't do something that is boring to you. Find ways how maybe you're the one that loves a prayer booklet every day, a devotional book, then do that. Maybe you're one that loves to read the Bible, then do that. Maybe you want to need, you don't have time or you don't feel you have time, then put the Bible on your car, and when you drive, there's a lot you can listen to when you drive, if you commune stuff. And then when you have kids, when they sleep, take those moments, how to clean up your kitchen, but then those are the moments where you need to find the 10 minutes here and 5 minutes there.
Mhm.
But you have them. We all have that time. You're going to have to fight for it and make it exciting and change it around, so that it's not just, that it not get boring. God is not boring. If it gets boring, then we're doing something wrong. So yeah, of course the highlights are going somewhere, but how do we live our everyday life? So
Mhm.
much of I think what I said and encouragement is hopefully in the everyday, because that's where it makes a difference, right? And then we can have the highlights and in doing stuff, special stuff. But most of us have a very normal everyday life, and that's where we need to find God and need to connect with Him.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing about your life and the adventures and the stories you've been on, and then your encouragement from the things of running and just sitting with God and hearing Him is kind of the overarching thing that I hear is just like meet with God. He wants to talk to you, hear from Him. And that's where a lot of the noise can kind of settle out and you can get more connected and create. So thank you for sharing. Anyone listening, check out Susie's website below, get connected to her book. Thank you for joining for this episode of Simply Complicated.
So much fun, Sadie, to connect with you again.